It is finally happening. We are getting a live-action Warhammer 40K TV series. Announced on the 16th of December, Amazon Studios have acquired the rights to Warhammer 40,000. The agreement encompasses rights to the universe across series, film, and more, and will sit alongside Games Workshop's activities as they continue to make the miniatures for the tabletop game. And the Nerd Emperor himself, Henry Cavill, is set to executive produce and star in the show. Obviously, there is a lot of excitement surrounding this announcement, including from me of course, but with huge news like this, there always comes a lot of speculation. What will the show be about? The world of 40k is huge, the lore goes deeper than most other properties that I know. There is so much choice. So in today's video, I'll be breaking down what I consider to be the most likely storylines. Let's get into it. So I have decided that there are 5 possible stories or timelines that this series is likely to be set in. I'll talk about each individually, but it's also of course very possible that they make a series that bounces around different times and settings, perhaps something like Black Mirror where they just tell individual stories, essentially lots of individual mini-films. But if they are going with one cohesive, continuous narrative, then these are the best guesses in my opinion. Number 1. Eisenhorn. Now, I've actually seen a few articles that have said that it's been confirmed that this is what the series will be based on. I can't find anything official, so I don't think so. But for me, this is the most likely story either way. Why? Well, for one, when it comes to 40k novels, ask anyone that's read a load of 40k, and most people will tell you that the Eisenhorn series is the best starting point to get into the lore. It's about Inquisitor Gregor Eisenhorn, and is a first-person detective-style thriller, and an absolute stone-cold classic. The overall story arc of the main trilogy of Eisenhorn books would make for great television content as well. I won't spoil the story here, but it plays with the questions of using chaos to defeat chaos. It has stories of mystery, loyalty, and betrayal, and quite honestly, it would be a damn shame to not have this story adapted for television at some point. Of course, there is also the fact that Gregor Eisenhorn is arguably one of the more well-known named characters in the 40k universe, and it makes sense to have a huge star such as Cavill take on a fictional star like Eisenhorn. I really think he suits the character. Moving on. Number 2. The Horus heresy. Now, this one is technically cheating as it's not really 40k. It's essentially the prequel story to the world we know in the 41st millennium. Set around 10,000 years before, it tells the story of the Primarchs, the so-called sons of the Emperor, the ones that were genetically responsible for the creation of the Space Marines. If you are new to 40k lore, a Primarch is basically to a Space Marine what a Space Marine is to a regular man. One of the Primarchs, the greatest Primarch, Horus Lupercal, went on to betray the Emperor of mankind. A great heresy ensued and threw the universe into many great wars and battles. Now, while the Eisenhorn series is the definitive domestic entry point for 40k novels, the Horus Heresy is without a doubt one of the most in-depth and varied stories set within this universe. We now have over 60 books in the series if you include the Siege of Terra stuff. And many of the books in this series are some of my favourite books ever, period, not just set within this world. The first trilogy, Horus Rising, False Gods, and Galaxy in Flames, are just absolutely fantastic books. And interestingly enough, the opener of the series, Horus Rising, was written by Dan Abnett, the same person that wrote the Eisenhorn series. Now, while there are a ton of great stories that could be told in this setting, the question would be, what would be the focus? Who would Cavill be playing? Now, there has of course been many shouts by fans for him to be the Emperor himself, which could be very interesting as we don't really see a great deal from the Emperor, but in my opinion, it would be more fun to see him play one of the Primarchs. He needs to be someone of power. And the Primarchs have a great mix of their own backstories, as well as being heavily involved with a lot of the action, a lot of the conflicts. The other benefit is many of them are still around later on into the 41st millennium, so we have the opportunity to have a follow-up sequel. I would actually like to see him play Robute Gulliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines. Now, while many 40k fans may roll their eyes at that, I think the G-Man is actually a total badass, and let's face it, if Space Marines are going to be heavily featured, it's going to be the Ultramarines. They are the face of the entire property. Also, the Battle of Calth? Come on. Number 3. Generic Space Marine story. Let's be honest, it's quite hard to imagine the first live-action 40k project to not heavily feature Space Marines. more specifically the boys in blue. There are many Space Marine chapters. Some of the more popular and interesting ones are the Blood Angels, the Space Wolves, Salamanders, and the Imperial Fists, among loads of others. But again, it always goes back to the Ultramarines, the so-called goody two-shoes of the Space Marines. I personally really like them. I like their Primarch, I like their design, but there are more interesting chapters out there. I'd personally love to see something focused around Space Wolves, which are essentially futuristic space Vikings, but I'm also just a sucker for Viking stuff. Number 4. Adeptus Custodes. Now, if Henry Cavill has much of a say in the story, I think he will end up playing one of the Adeptus Custodes, the personal Golden Guard of the Emperor himself. These warriors are to the Space Marines what the Emperor is to his Primarchs, and rumour has it that they were each individually made by the Master of Mankind himself. They are widely regarded as the deadliest warriors in the entire galaxy. Now, while they would make pretty cool characters to base a show on, there is another reason why I think it's a fairly likely choice, and that is simply because Adeptus Custodes is the army of choice for Cavill himself within the tabletop hobby. On a number of occasions on his social media or in interviews, he has brought up the big golden boys as being his choice, so it's a safe bet that if he has a say in the story itself, there is a strong chance that he would pick to be one of the Custodes. Finally, number 5. Something original entirely. Now, with all these things being said, there is a chance, however small, that we could just be given something completely original. Original characters, original battles. It could even be an original Space Marine faction or something similar. I think I would personally like to see something based on the previous things I have listed here, preferably Eisenhorn or something based in the heresy, but to be honest, I am just so happy to finally be getting a big budget 40k live action project that I will be happy with whatever we get. And one good thing about this compared to other recent Amazon productions that shall not be named in this video is we don't actually have any previous live action content to compare this to, which I think can be a big hurdle for well-known IPs these days. Everyone has expectations based on previous versions of them, whereas because this is the first of its kind for 40k, we have no expectations, only hopes. Let me know in the comments down below what you'd most like to see from Amazon, Henry Cavill, and the Warhammer team. It's exciting times indeed. Also, let's try and keep the comments civil and positive. Thanks everyone. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great Christmas and an even better New Year, and I'll see you next time on the Tabletop Alliance.